All right, hey guys, in 1010, this is going to be lesson 5, how multiple disparate entities influence schools. And for those of you in my online section, this is just your second lecture. I'm still trying to figure out like how many lectures I actually want to give you and how much other communication. What I think I'm going to do for now, at least, is I'll post 1 or 2 lectures a week to introduce certain topics and to kind of walk you through the discussion prompts in Canvas and the other resources that are available to you. So I highly recommend you watch these lectures. It's going to make your life a lot easier because I'm going to point out all the resources and tools that you can use. But I don't know if I'll do one for every single lesson. It might just be once a week. Okay. So for today, you'll notice here in this opening slide that it says how multiple disparate entities influence schools. And I intentionally used a word that maybe is a little less familiar to you, but that's appropriate in this setting. And I think it's important because one of the things you're doing as you're going throughout your education is you're learning the language of academia. There's a vocabulary that comes with being a teacher and with dealing with educational resources. And we're going to try to expand that vocabulary that you have right now. And so every once in a while, I'll pull in some sort of vocab just so that you're familiar with it. So today with disparate, you can probably guess about what it means. If you look at the word itself, if we thought of it as separate instead of disparate, separate is just 2 different entities, right? Disparate is similar to that. It's 2 separate things, but that those things can connect, right? And so the way I like to think about this is using concept maps. In a concept map, you take a main idea, and that's the center of the map. So if we look at you as just a person that we're creating a map around, and then we think about who are the people in your lives. Well, your mom, your dad, your cousin, or whatever. Those are separate groups, but they're still connected to each other through you, right? And that's what makes them disparate. So today we're going to look at how disparate entities influence schools. Let's do a little bit of review from what we read about and discussed last week. Maybe if it will forward my slides. There we go. All right. So, and let me move my face down here so I'm not blocking things off. That should work. All right. So last week we talked about the purpose of schooling and how that may or may not have changed over time. You read 2 of those articles, and they talked about a lot of the same things. And so in the discussion board this week, I'm going to create a prompt for you that simply says, no, I'm not, because that's what you did last week. So this is truly just a review. So let me review with you. When we think about schooling, we think about socializing kids and helping them prepare for the real world. We also think about the skills that are associated with being a productive citizen. So those soft skills about how to get along with people, how to collaborate. One of the articles talked a lot about creativity and how schools give kids a structured setting to be creative and to create new things. And typically with developmentally, when we're creating, right, when we're creating at a young age, it's creating ideas. We're using our imagination. We're thinking through things, and we're doing imaginative play. As we get older, we formalize some of those creations, right? And so it's not just thinking through ideas in our head, but now we start building those actual things or prototypes or ideas. And as teachers, we absolutely do this. We think, oh, I loved how my teacher did this thing. I'm going to do that in my classroom. So we're starting with generating those ideas. And then as we get into the classroom, we try them out and we see how it works. And we do the research and we add to that creativity so that we can be outstanding teachers. And so, so that's another reason we have schooling. But we have to think about like the political reasons and the cultural reasons for schooling. Obviously, we're preparing people to get jobs, right? So businesses care about schools because we're preparing people to go work for them. But we're also creating, like, a lot of people, I hate this, but a lot of parents genuinely believe schools are just like a glorified daycare, and the only reason they go in schools are worthless. You don't need schools, you don't need an education. A lot of people really have those attitudes, but they have to put their kids somewhere during the day because it's the law. And so they drop them off at school and then they go to work. And that is one of the functions or the roles of schools, right? So it might not be one of the better ones, but it's one of the roles of schools. One of the things that we've seen, and I hope you saw this as you did the reading, is schools have not changed dramatically in their purpose or in how they're run over the last 50, 100 years. And moving forward, we're going to talk about what would be a better model, how we could improve schools. And I bet you got some ideas as you were reading for things that you wish were different or things that maybe need to be adapted a little bit. And so we'll talk about that later on in the semester. All right, we're going to talk about stakeholders and the stakeholders in education. Now, again, this might not be a familiar word for you, but a stakeholder is basically someone who has a vested interest in something, right? So a stakeholder in an online company, like say a Google, if you're a stakeholder in Google, it means you own part of the company. You actually invested your money. And if you did so like I did when they were brand new, you didn't have to invest a lot, maybe 10, 20 bucks, $100, and then it grew over time. And your stake was still small, but as the company grew, your stake enlarged, right? Well, as humans, we have stakeholders. We have people who are interested and invested in us. So back to what I was talking about earlier with that concept map. In class, what I did is I drew this on the board and I just drew a picture of a person and I circled it. And then I started drawing lines out to stakeholders in our lives. So your mom and your dad, your brother and your sister, your cousins, your coworkers, your friends. And some of those are kind of your inner circle. So they're really close to that center of the map, like your parents or your spouse. But then other people you're connected to through them. So like your extended family, your grandma and your grandpa, that comes through your parents. So off the parent bubble, we draw another line and go to grandparents and cousins and aunts and uncles. With our friends, maybe our close friends are that first group out, and then we extend that out to coworkers and roommates and people you know from church and stuff like that. And so that map grows. And as we think about stakeholders, I mean, it's easiest to think about people we know, but there are also stakeholders maybe that we don't know so well. So if you're from a small town, for example, and you accomplish something great, do the people from your community care? Does that influence them? Probably. And likewise, if you mess up, there's somebody back in your hometown that's like, oh, I knew they were going to mess it up, right? And so the people do have a vested interest. I was telling my class this morning, a really cool experience that I had over the weekend is my son was selling a goat. And I don't know much about the goat world, but I rushed so I could be there for the show. And he just wanted to make more money than he made last year. And so his goal was to make $800. And when they started the bidding, I was so excited. Well, I was nervous because I thought the two goats right before his sold for $600 and $700. I was like, oh, I don't know if he's going to make it. Like, I don't know what makes a good goat, you know? But it got bid up all the way to $1,200, which I was thrilled. And of course, my son was over the moon. And I found out later that the reason that it got bid up to $1,200 is the person who bought the goat was the next door neighbor of where my son was raising the goat with his friends. Their neighbor who saw them out working with the goats every day and feeding them and walking them, that neighbor who saw these boys, these high school boys that were doing that, he bought all their goats. He bought 3 goats and he paid he told us as we were leaving, he's like, if you ever want to see your goat again, it's going to be in my freezer. And what that means is he's not going to use the goats. He's simply going to kill them for the meat. And I asked around and I was like, well, how much is a goat worth? And I found out about $2 a pound. The goats were about $80. So it was $160 worth, but he paid $1,200. So he almost 10x'd what it was worth. And he did it for 3 boys. And the interesting thing is he's not real close to these 3 boys. He knows who they are. I think he knows all 3 of their families, but not a super close friend of ours, but he's a member of the community and he has a vested interest. In this case, he even told me, he's like, I have a vested interest, or I'm a stakeholder in teenagers who are willing to work hard. And he had the extra money. He's a very successful person in our community. And he wanted to support kids that were willing to work hard. And so, I mean, I got really emotional. I couldn't believe that he was willing to do that we barely know him, you know, but he wanted to support people. And so he's a stakeholder. And when we think about schools as stakeholders, you'll notice that there are a lot of people who are kind of peripheral. They're disparate entities. They're separate, but they all connect through that one thing. So when we look at who are the stakeholders in education, the obvious ones are the inner circle, right? The teachers, the students, the administrators. But then as we expand that out, we've got government entities, we've got the district, we've got local and state governments, we've got the federal government, which controls a lot of things that happen in education. But we also have the community. Businesses have a stake in education. The reputation of a town has a stake in education. And so there's a lot of things that matter. And this is exciting because we're going to do an assignment called the Annotated Stakeholder Visual Assignment, where you are actually going to create one of these concept maps. All right, so you're going to find all the things that relate to schooling, and you're going to put it together. So let me just read this to you real quick. The Annotated Stakeholder Visual consists of some sort of visual that portrays the structure of public schooling in the United States. So you're going to show kind of the relationship between the school and the district and on up, okay? The structure will include the local community stakeholders within the school, the district, and the community, but also extends to the larger social and political structures. Students can produce their visual by hand or electronic tools. Obviously, with this online class, I'm going to have you submit it electronically, but you can create a poster, you can draw it out, and then just take a picture with your phone, and then you'll just submit the image, okay? And then here's the important part. The visual must be annotated. And what that means is stakeholders and the relationships, collaborations, and or conflicts should be described. So what you'll do is you'll have like the school, and then you'll have like the district, and you will just write on this visual the relationship between the school and the district, okay? And obviously, the more details you include, the better. You want it to look great, but we want to clearly see the relationships, the collaborations, etc. Okay, so I put some resources together for you, and these slides will be available in the module for week 4. It will just be called Lesson 5 slides, and you'll come and just click on these links here, and I put 3 resources for you. So these are your readings, at least for this early part of the week. And they're not very long, they're just little website pages, but they tell you the definition of stakeholder. They tell you what educational stakeholders are, and they get a little bit into the relationships. So this is a good place to start, and then I will have more resources for you as time goes on. Now, this assignment will be due next Sunday, so you've got a week to work on it. So I recommend you start sooner than later. It wouldn't be hard to go through these 3 resources today and start taking notes. And then with those notes, let me see if I can flip over to module 3 here, or week 3. So here is what we have for week 3. I posted the video of the getting to know you questions. So you submitted those last night, and I went ahead and I went through all the questions and I responded on a video. And if you go to that video and then click on the YouTube channel, it's just called ED 1010 or EDUC 1010, then you can see a playlist for all the other sections. So if you want to see more questions, you can do that. Then you can click on the slides. That's what I just showed you, and it has those 3 links on it. And then we have the discussion right here that says educational stakeholders. Now, if I click on here, it's pretty simple. It just says, who are the stakeholders in education, or the disparate entities who have a vested interest in the success of schools. So it's getting you started with your project for this week. And then, so you'll just reply on this thread and list 1 or 2. So everybody in the class should list 1 or 2, and I'll look to see that you're participating in this discussion. And I just noted here the online articles that answer this question are linked in the slides. Now, once people have started listing those, I'm going to put up another discussion board. I might do that today. I might wait for a few days, but it's simply going to say, now that we've identified the stakeholders, what are some of the relationships and conflicts and collaborations between those disparate entities? So this is really cool, because just like you would do in a face-to-face class where we get together in groups and we brainstorm, you'll be doing that here on the discussion board. And if you participate in that and read what everyone else writes, that should make doing this week's assignment really, really easy, because you'll have all the information that you need as you learn and collaborate with the other people in our class. So I'm really excited about that and see how it comes together this week. I will probably post a video for you, or at least some text resources later in the week. But for today, you have this video and the other things here in Module 3 so you can get started. I didn't do a lecture last week, and I think I need to. And so I might go back through and post some other stuff just because online is hard to facilitate from a distance, and I want to make sure you're getting all the same resources and opportunities that my other students are getting. So expect to see something posted throughout the week, just as a callback to last week. You won't be expected to go back and do it, but I just want to make it available for you. All right, I hope your life is wonderful, that you had a great weekend, and I'll sign off for now. Have a good day. Bye-bye.